Welcome on in, everybody, to my channel here on YouTube to another book review. And if you have watched my previous book review, you will know that the book review we're doing today is on this book, Tough by Kevin Smith. And honestly, it's a really good book. It's a really good book. Really not that thick. Like, for a autobiography, it's not that, it doesn't have a lot of girth to it, I guess I should say. Like, normally when you see like an autobiography, it's like a really big book because this person's trying to tell you like so many things about their life. But honestly, this was nice. This was a nice read because he made it in, I don't want to say they're short chapters, but that they are well-sized chapters because they don't feel too long, they don't feel too short. It's the Goldilocks area. It's just right. So yeah, for those of you who don't know, Kevin Smith, the guy on the cover right here, is a director, actor, podcaster, movie fanatic, comic book nerd, like most of us are. And he is basically the person who directed, if you've seen any of these movies, in no particular order: Clerks, Clerks 2, Chasing Amy, Mallrats, Dogma. He's got a few others out there, but those are the ones I can really remember. Of all of those books, of all of those movies, I think the only one I haven't seen is Chasing Amy, because I think I saw Mallrats about 2 years ago. Maybe it was last year, I'm not really sure. But I don't know what Chasing Amy is, but apparently Chasing Amy is like one of his best movies ever, which is insane because I always thought like the Clerks movies were the greatest movies he's done. Like those were a bit out there, very, very indie, how they would describe indie movies, but those were really good movies. They were just funny movies, like, for reals. So this book was published in 2012, and the reason why I'm pointing that out will become apparent later as I go through what's actually in this book. But you need to know that this was written in 2012. Keep that in mind. I will come back to it later, obviously, to make a specific point, but this was written in the early 2010s. Okay, so for the spoiler kind of in-depth section of this book review, now we're going to actually go into the actual chapters of this book, which, if I can get to the table of contents, literally are all labeled kind of like the title. So you got chapter 1, let's get this started. Pig Newtons and how all this happened. Yeah, and that's basically how it goes, like going through all the various points in his life. And it's really good. Like, it's really good. Especially that first chapter. Like, I gotta say, like, after I read the first chapter, I had to stop for a few days, only because it did start with him describing that his dad did die at a, I don't want to say a young age for him, but an age for him to remember. It might have been like later on in life. He didn't exactly say what point in time his father died, but the main thing he says is that his father died screaming, and like that just broke my heart right there. Like, I read the chapter, and after I was done, I was like, I just need to put it down, and I need to cry for a while because that one really hit home for me. But aside from being super heartbreaking, that first chapter was also very inspirational, because inspirational and kind of comedic, because he does thank his mom and dad for basically having sex to make him. And that was basically the whole point of that first chapter, because literally, and he describes it better than I'm going to right now. I'm probably just going to butcher the way he said it, but it was literally a 1 in a million shot for all of us who are here on this earth right now to be the sperm that was chosen. A literal race to see which one of us little swimmers I don't know how else to say that, was gonna be the one who actually gets to live the life. And it just so happened it's you, it's me, it's him. All of us won that race. Strange way to put it, but yeah, like we literally won the greatest race we'll ever win. Because we get to enjoy this life here and now. So yeah, moving on from that specific chapter is basically to get you into the, I guess, the feel of how the chapters are gonna go. Basically, it's like it is telling you the life stuff, everything that goes on in his life and everything. There's a little bit of comedy thrown in there, as well as a lot of pop culture, which I really appreciated. Like, it made it feel natural, kind of like you're just having a conversation with a friend, like you're just talking to one of your friends or something, and not so like, oh, real structured and you have to follow this particular pattern and everything. This guy is just talking. It's like he just felt it and just wrote it down, and that's it. And I really appreciate that. That was really, really good. So the next couple of chapters, obviously, they start with him growing up and wanting to become a filmmaker. Watching all of these movies with his dad and ending up working in a convenience store, kind of like Clerks. And he meets one of his friends. That was a friend he really talked a lot about movies with, because he didn't really have anybody his age or roughly around his age to be able to talk movies with, or they didn't like the same movies he did. So it was nice for him to have that connection with someone. And then that's when it started, where he started getting into his head, I want to make movies. I want to make films. And I want to be a filmmaker and things like that. And he would always go around his house and telling his family and everything, I want to be a filmmaker. I'm going to be a filmmaker. And one of the days, I don't know, his sister, might have got annoyed with him or whatever, always going around saying that. And she kind of not snapped, but basically got annoyed and said, well, then just go be a filmmaker. Stop talking about it and just go do it. And that was one of the things that he said really stuck with him, because I have it written down here. She said, you don't have to want to be a filmmaker. Just be a filmmaker. Because, yeah, nobody says you can't be a filmmaker. I can even say right now, I want to be a filmmaker. I'm going to be a filmmaker. I haven't made a movie yet, but I'm going to be a filmmaker. I am a filmmaker. I'll possibly, just as an example, I'll make a film, but right now, I'm just a filmmaker. And that applies to anybody who wants to be anything in their life. We always go around and say, oh, I want to be this, I want to be that, I want to be that. You are. You just haven't done it yet, but you are. You are all of those things. And that, honestly, right there, when I was reading it in the book, I was like, okay, yeah, this is good. That moment it happened, and he started explaining the same thing that I'm explaining to you, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's a genius. It's true. Yeah, we are all the things we always want to say. I wanted to be a Twitch streamer. Back when COVID happened in 2020, I was like, yeah, I want to be a Twitch streamer. I want to be a Twitch streamer. I was a Twitch streamer. I just hadn't done a Twitch stream until I did a Twitch stream. And then I became a Twitch streamer. And it's thinking like that, I was like, oh my God, that's so true. It's also kind of that little push you need to actually go do the thing you want to do. It was amazing. So moving on from the amazing breakthrough I had there. Yeah, he goes through basically how he got his big break, how he took out a lot of credit cards and used all that money, or the credit card money, to buy all the equipment and stuff to actually film Clerks, which I think he said they filmed in the actual convenience store him and his friend worked at, which I thought was amazing. And taking that film and debuting it or showing it off to everybody at the Sundance Film Festival. And then from there, from that Sundance Film Festival, Miramax ended up buying not the rights, but basically buying the movie from them, so that Miramax can put it out to a wider audience, because that was the kind of movie they wanted to make. Miramax is a company that basically put out movies they put out Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction movie. So yeah, they didn't want to stick to the normal everyday type of movies that everybody's putting out. They were looking for those out there movies, the things that people didn't really make, but people wanted to see. I didn't know what Clerks was until my brother showed it to me like way long ago, probably about 10 years ago. And I was like, okay, it was a great movie. Like, I had never heard anything about it. And I was like, okay, this is a funny movie. This is like a really funny movie. And because it was Miramax was started by the Weinstein brothers. I don't remember the other brother's name, but it was Harvey and his brother, Harvey Weinstein. That's why I told you guys to keep in mind that this book was written in 2012. Because that Harvey Weinstein basically gave Kevin Smith his big break. He bought the movie along with his brother to put it out to the masses, to make everybody be able to watch this movie. And kept Kevin Smith on so he can continue making other movies. Clerks 2, Chasing Amy, all of those other movies I mentioned at the beginning. And basically, Harvey Weinstein became a hero in Kevin Smith's eyes. Again, this is before all of this stuff came out, all of the sexual assault allegations about Harvey Weinstein and everything that came out in the past 5 years. This was before all of that happened. So if you read this, take it with a grain of salt when you get to that part, because even I was kind of like, I don't know if I should really believe this, because I know this about this guy now. But yeah, like I said, this was written in 2012, before everything came out, before everything came to light. For Harvey Weinstein to buy the movie, or for Miramax to actually buy the movie from Kevin Smith, basically, and kept him on to keep making all of those other movies, he dubbed himself, as well as the others who worked for Miramax-keteers. Basically, this was a little selected group of indie directors who would fight to the death to defend what Miramax was about. That they weren't like the other companies who were worried about the profit numbers or the putting out the what's it called? I'm looking for a word and I can't think of it. Promotion, like the promotion stuff, how many posters there are or billboards there are out there. They didn't care about that. They didn't want to put out these nice happy-go-lucky movies and everything. They wanted to put out things that like made you feel things afterwards. That like the movie, the way they described it is that if you leave a movie and after you finish watching it, that's where it ends, the movie didn't do its job. Because the movie is supposed to stay with you well after you already leave the theater, well into the rest of your life. That's when a movie really makes an impact on you. And I was like, yeah, okay, I get that. Like, only certain movies have that. Not all of them do, but certain ones do. I watched Pulp Fiction. I don't know what that movie's about. I honestly don't know what that movie's about. But it's one of those movies that I'm kind of like, even to this day, I'm like, what? Do I know what it's about? Do I understand what the hell happened? Why did that scene happen? Why? And that's what they want. They wanted to basically be like a worm in your brain at all times, stuck in your head, because at least it makes it stay in your head. You remember that movie well after you'd already seen it. It's stuck in there. Where other ones, it's just like, okay, yeah, I saw it. Move on. Go and do something else with the rest of your life. But it's those really good ones, those ones that either make you think really deeply about something or that just like affect you emotionally, that really, really stick with you. So the Miramax-keteers, it's a hard word to pronounce. Basically, they would, like I said, defend the integrity of indie movies or this indie company from all of other production companies. They were just like, no, that guy, that's the big guy. We don't care about the big guy. We do things our way and everything. Until Disney bought Miramax. Obviously, no, like especially nowadays with Disney buying up Marvel and like all different kinds of things like that, Disney doesn't really want different. It doesn't want you to be indie. It wants stuff that'll sell, but it doesn't want to be thought-provoking very much. At least in my opinion, I don't think it does. Somebody else can fight me in the comments about that. But yeah, like especially the big one I would point out would be the new Star Wars trilogy was it literally just felt like a copy of the originals, and I'm talking 4, 5, and 6, not the prequels. Yeah, it had to tie everything up in a nice little bow just to make sense and just to sell it out, get it out there and make all this money off of the characters and everything, because Star Wars sells and Disney likes making money. Don't come at me, Disney, please. Kevin Smith and like a couple of the others they tried to stay on after Miramax was bought up by Disney, but like I said, they weren't into the indie scene. They didn't like those indie movies that they were making, and like it became very apparent when Harvey Weinstein, they had just put out a movie. I want to say it was She's All That, and that was like the first time they'd ever done a very poppy movie, I guess you could say, like something that has a happy ending. Because if you've seen She's All That, that's basically what it is. Yeah, something bad does happen in the movie, but it's just like everything else, Pretty in Pink, any other sort of Cinderella type story where they take a not so nice looking girl and change her into someone beautiful, and then she gets the guy in the end. And they didn't like that. But they couldn't do anything because they weren't the head guys. So they were like, okay, Harvey knows what he's doing. We're just gonna let him do his thing. It became apparent that Harvey was kind of moving away from the indie scene, because when Quentin Tarantino came up to him and said, hey, I didn't direct this, but I produced it. Or he didn't produce it, he directed it. One of those two ways. It was the movie Hostel. I think it was the movie Hostel. It was kind of a very horror movie. I've never seen it because I'm not into horror, but I remember previews for it, and like it looked pretty gory, and I was like, oh my god, I'm not gonna watch that. But only because I'm not into that type of stuff. But yeah, so Quentin Tarantino came up and said, here, I have this movie for you. This movie, we're already done. We already made it. It just needs to be put out there. And Harvey was like, no, we don't want it. We don't want it anymore. Like we don't want to do those types of movies anymore. And this was coming from the guy that basically the entirety of Miramax was built on Quentin Tarantino's Pulp Fiction. Pulp Fiction is what skyrocketed Miramax into like the stratosphere of all of the other movie producers or the movie companies. And for them to say no to Quentin Tarantino, like how many people would actually say no to Quentin Tarantino? That I will not put out a Quentin Tarantino movie. The name alone would already get you sales right there. But yeah, so they said no, and they were kind of like, well, we're kind of moving away from what we're used to. We're not doing the normal things anymore. So they're like, it's not the same company we're used to. Things are changing. He noticed a really big change when Kevin Smith noticed the change, but he still kind of tried to work with them, and that's when he made the movie Cop Out, the one with Bruce Willis and what's his name, Tracy Morgan. That was the one. And he was like so excited. He was super excited to make this. He thought there was a different name for the movie, but I don't remember what it was. It was something hilarious, but Harvey said, no, Disney will not let us put this out. You'll have to change the name. And they were like, okay, we'll change the name, whatever. So they changed the name, and they're like, okay, we're gonna give you these people. We need names on this movie. We need big time names on this movie. Where before nobody really knew who anybody was. But they offered him the chance to work with Bruce Willis, which the only time he had worked previously with Bruce Willis was when they were both filming the movie Live Free or Die Hard. Because Kevin Smith was in that movie as, what was his name? The Wizard? I want to say it was The Wizard. Honestly, I haven't seen that movie in a long time, and it wasn't that great. And he really thought that working with Bruce Willis was amazing because it's Bruce Willis, this action star, and he thought it was so awesome. Until he had to be the director of Bruce Willis. That's when things started going downhill. It was like meeting another one of your idols again, where it didn't live up to his standards. Because Bruce Willis didn't always want to do everything according to what he as the director wanted him to do. There were times where he just didn't want to do a scene at all. And Tracy Morgan's here trying to like work with him and everything, taking criticism, offering like feedback and like, should I do this, should I do that, and everything, bouncing ideas off of Kevin Smith. And he was like he was happy about it. Bruce Willis came on set. Everybody was kind of like, oh, we have to work with him again. And it seemed like one of those things where it was like he'd been doing this for so long, he's kind of just like, I'm over it, but you guys still want me to do movies, so I'll do movies. Bottom line is, he didn't have a great time on it, and he was so happy for the movie to be done. And I felt so bad reading that, because I was like, but Bruce Willis seems like a really nice guy. Especially now, like, because now, like, you see the headlines and everything, and you see that he's got, like, possible Alzheimer's or dementia, I believe it was. And you're kind of like, oh, this is so sad. So yeah, it was at that point where Kevin Smith decided, I'm done with Miramax. I want to leave Miramax / the Weinstein Company, because Harvey and his brother did eventually break away from Disney because Disney wasn't even doing anything well for them. So they created their own company, but that's when they were like, okay, now since we're footing the bill, we kind of have to take into account certain things, and we can't always publish everything or put out every single movie you guys might want to make, even if it's under budget, because all of our promotion costs it's going to just take too much, so we'd just rather not do the movie, even if the movie's already done. So that's when Kevin Smith kind of decided, it's my time to walk off into the sunset. That leaving of Harvey Weinstein's company, which was just, I think, Weinstein Co., or I don't remember, kind of made Kevin Smith really depressed. Like, he didn't really know what to do with his life. His entire thing was, I want to be a filmmaker. He finally became a filmmaker. For the past 20 years, he'd been making films. Some of them not that great, some of them amazing. And it got to a point where he's like, well, if I'm not a filmmaker, what do I do? And it was really sad to read. He ended up having a moment where he was just like, I don't have anything to do, so I'm going to watch all of the DVDs I own. And one of those DVDs ended up being like a discography of like every single hockey person ever. Like all of the hockey greats. And it wasn't until he got to the Wayne Gretzky CD that it finally clicked in him. Like, watching that one disc, I don't even know what the DVD set was called, but that one disc on Wayne Gretzky, that entire little biography of Wayne Gretzky, changed Kevin Smith's life. At least in his words, he said it changed his life, because Wayne Gretzky's known as like the greatest hockey player of all time, but he didn't actually like score very many goals. So like, how can he be named the greatest hockey player of all time if he didn't make all the goals? Looking into his stats, that's what he did. I'm not a hockey fan, so I didn't look into this. But yeah, Kevin Smith looked into his stats, and he saw that it wasn't because he scored all the goals. It was because he helped other players score the goals. He was more of a team player than he was hey, look at me, I'm the star of this show. He worked his butt off, starting from a little kid. Even his dad helped him and things like that, to become a great player. Not to puck chase, I guess you could say that. In Rocket League, we tend to call it like ball chasing, where basically you're chasing after the whatever sport instrument, I guess it is. But basically, so you're not chasing after the puck. Because if you're chasing after the puck, you're always going to be behind it. And that was the thing he pointed out. You're always going to be behind it if you're chasing it. But if you figure out where it's going to go, where that puck is going to go, you can get ahead of it. Or where you want it to go. You can direct it to where you want to go. So basically, that was like a life lesson for him. So instead of trying to chase after this dream of going back to what Miramax once was, and trying to bring this company back from whatever it had turned into, he just figured, why try and chase something that's already gone when I can just go in a different direction and make something that I know is going to go in a direction, like something that I already know is going to be well received. And that is how he started with the movie Red State. That's another one I haven't seen. I haven't seen Red State, although I hear it's like amazing. So I kind of do want to watch that one. I just need to figure out where it's going to be shown. So again, he directed Red State, did everything, and all of this stuff. Directed it, recorded it, everything, edited. He edited all his own videos. Like, that's the crazy thing. He edited his own movies. He didn't have somebody else do it. He did it all himself. Now the problem came to be, how do they get it out to everybody else? How do they make it available to everybody who might want to see it, who are already fans of Kevin Smith, or who are already fans of his website? They were already chatting with him. So he decided to go a different route. Rather than buying up all of this promotion space or like doing trailers on TV, they were like, some people would tell him like, we can't air that before 9 because like children are watching. And he didn't want to have to deal with any of that, because that cost would be a lot. It would cost them a lot of money to do that. So he came up with an alternate route. He went up to he did an interview, I believe. I don't remember who the interview was with, but he did an interview with someone, and he said, oh yeah, we're going to be debuting this new movie at the Sundance Film Festival, and we're going to auction it off to whoever wants to buy the rights to it, or to whoever wants to buy it. And, well, no, he said, we're going to auction it off. He didn't say to whoever wants to buy it. He just said, we're going to auction it. On that night when it shows, we're going to auction it. That got like the internet. This was like at the beginning of the internet age. So once that was on the internet, everybody started losing their minds. Because they're like, oh my god, Kevin Smith is going to auction off his movie to whoever wants to buy it and things like that. This caught the attention of a religious group. I can't remember what the religious group was called. But yeah, basically it was a religious group that opposed everything that was going on in this movie, mainly because it was a very religious movie. Same thing with what happened in Dogma, but this one, they decided they were going to put out there to the world on the internet saying that we're going to go, what's it called? They were going to stand outside and hold signs. I don't know what the correct term for that is, but they were going to go out there and hold signs opposing Kevin Smith's movie, or the playing of this movie. And he was like, okay, so let's make this even better. He put up on his own website saying that, okay, because this family, and they have it's a family, the group of religious people is a family. I just don't remember their name. They're like, since this group of people is going to be boycotting, that's what the word is, figured it out, they're going to be boycotting our movie, we're going to boycott their boycott. He's like, everybody who wants to join in, you bring out your craziest sign of boycotting whatever the hell this is. So that created more hype, but basically he's creating his own press without actually going to the press. And it got a lot of attention and everything, and when the day actually happened, that religious family was actually out there with all their signs, but so were all his fans. So we're all Kevin Smith's fans with really random signs boycotting whatever. I actually want to go see if there's still pictures of this up, because it would be hilarious. He said it was amazing because like he got to take pictures with so many people and everything like that, and again, all the press and everything. The thing was, the auction that took place after the movie premiered at the Sundance Film Festival wasn't really an auction, because when it was his teammate, or his partner. I don't remember who his partner was, but his partner basically opened the floor to everybody to say, hey, this movie is out there it's up for auction now. Kevin Smith was like, I'll buy it. And everybody was like very confused. He's like, you own the movie, how can you buy it? And like it kind of made people mad, because it sort of skewed their idea of what the auction was that was going to take place. I'm guessing they assumed it was going to be like a really big like an actual auction with like people bidding all over the place to see how much they can get this movie for. But all of this was just done so that they can get the news out there that there was a new Kevin Smith movie. From there, they took it on the road. They basically, I don't want to say turned it into a circus act, but that's how it kind of was, where they went from town to town showing off this movie to whoever wanted to see it. Whoever bought the tickets to a Q&A of theirs got to see the movie. And that's basically how they funded everything. Once they made enough money at a specific place, they used that money to buy a venue at another city. Buy another venue at another city. Things like that. the fact that they sold out their first venue, and I want to say it was either in New York. I want to say it was in New York. I don't remember which place in New York, but it was a rather big venue in New York. They sold out that place that helped them fund the rest of almost all of the rest of the screenings that they were going to do, because they were going across the country. And basically that's how they got their movie out there. They did what Harvey and his brother did back in the day, and to them it felt like the greatest thing ever. It gave them a new sense of purpose, like they were doing things the right way again, at least to them. And then a few years later, Kevin Smith was doing, it got really crazy trying to read this. Kevin Smith was doing an interview or something in California at some other place. He lives in California, so it was just like a short plane ride to a different part of California. This is when the whole plane incident thing happened, because certain things happen. Like, it gets really complicated because he went for a specific thing. His wife was supposed to go with him, but she didn't go, so he flew back home. But his friend wanted him to go talk at like a gay conference about something, and he was like, no, I don't really want to. And his friend kind of like prodded him, like, come on, this is the only time like any guy's gonna like hit on you or whatever. The wife was like, well, if you go, I'm gonna go. And so he bought 2 tickets, and then the morning they were supposed to leave, the wife said, I'm not gonna go. And so he went by himself. Even though he had 2 tickets, he went by himself. And then it was on the way back, trying to get back home, that this whole plane incident occurred. And I remember reading about it. I remember seeing some of the articles about it. I just didn't know really what had happened. So reading it from his perspective was like really eye-opening. So he had the 2 tickets because it was one for him and one for his wife, even though he only used one. He wanted to get back early, so he wanted to get on an earlier flight, because basically like they were running every hour, because it was like only an hour away, and he wanted to see if he can get onto an earlier flight. I don't want to say receptionist, I don't know what they're called, the ticket counter lady that he was talking to. When she saw him, she was like, she kind of like gave him like the elevator eyes and noticed that he was like on the rather heftier side than being like stick thin. And she was like, well, I'll put your name on the list and everything. So he sat down, and then they called him saying like, yeah, okay, there's a spot that opened up and everything, so you can get on the earlier flight of the plane, or the plane taking off. And then he got there. I think he was at the front of the plane. He'd already put his stuff away, and there was a lady on this side, I believe, who had her headphones in. And then there was like a grandma lady over here, really older lady. And he had the seat in the middle. So he was there, he sat down, buckled in and everything, and ready to go. And then all of a sudden, the same ticket lady, I don't know what else to call her. I don't know what they're not flight attendants, because they're not in it's the one that takes your ticket on the outside. I've never been on a plane, so I don't know. So she came into the plane and she said, Mr. Smith, you're going to have to come with me. The pilot said you have to get off the plane. He was very confused by that. He was like, what do you mean I have to get off the plane? And she's like, yeah, it's a security risk. You need to get off of the plane. He's like, what are you talking about? What kind of security risk? And she's like, well, you need the armrests to go down. They need to be able to go down. Or it's like some security risk or something like that. And he was very confused. He's like, how does the pilot even see me? He hasn't come out of the cockpit. There are no cameras or anything. He's like, I'm already strapped in and everything. And she's like, can you not like create a scene or anything? We just need you to come with us. And he's like, don't do this to me. Don't make me get out of this plane, because everybody already saw me get on. Some people even recognized him on the plane. And she was like, it's not my call, like, I just need you to come with me. And like, he said he was close to tears, because it was basically because she believed, or somebody believed, that he was overweight and would not be allowed to sit in that seat, because he bought 2 tickets. They thought he bought 2 tickets for himself, not realizing he bought that second ticket for his wife. And so he got out of the plane and everything, and he went up to the other counter, or to the same counter, and she's like, we'll get you on the next flight, which was his original flight. And And then he's like, but like, why couldn't I just go on that flight? I was already in there. All my stuff was packed away. Everybody had room to do everything. I was buckled in, and he couldn't believe it. Like, they couldn't give him a straight answer. So they called in like a manager type person, and they're like, oh yes sir. So they just gave him the same thing over again. It was the pilot's decision. He had to make a call, and unfortunately you had to get off the plane and everything. And he's like, well, what do I do with my other tickets? Because like, you guys took my ticket. How do I get on the... And he's like, well, here's a $100 voucher you can take. He's like, I don't want your $100 voucher. I want to get on that plane, and I want to go home. And like, it became a whole thing. He's like, just, we'll get you on the next plane and everything, trying to give him the voucher and whatever. It turned into a whole mess. He did what most people would do in a situation like this, where you feel very offended and attacked and everything. He sat down waiting for the next plane and took to Twitter. Started like sending all kinds of tweets, basically. I think it was United Airlines. No, was it United Airlines? I don't remember. Southwest? It might have been Southwest Airlines. But like, basically adding them in every tweet he was doing, saying like, oh, I'm sorry if I'm too big for your seats and everything. He's like, I was able to buckle up the seatbelts and stuff, and like, just sending them all this, and like, it got insane. To the point where that same guy, that same manager type dude who tried to offer him the voucher, went over to where he was sitting and was like, Mr. Smith, can you please stop tweeting? Can you please stop tweeting? Because like, they obviously heard, and they're probably like, well, what the hell's going on? Why is this guy so upset and everything? So when the next plane finally arrived, they kind of escorted him onto the plane and allowed him to take whatever seat he wanted, basically trying to like appease him after what happened. And so he sat down and everything, and then he saw across like because I think he was in the front row, and he looked down on the other end, and he saw another big-sized person. I don't know how else to say that. I'm trying to be politically correct here and not offend anybody, but like a larger person, a larger woman, I should say. Everybody was filing into the plane, like the other passengers were getting in. It wasn't as full as the other plane, but the seats were filling up. Not a lot, but they were still filling up. It just so happened that same ticket lady walked into the plane again. Walked up to the front again. Didn't stop at Kevin Smith. She walked to the other lady, the heavier lady that was down the row from him. She started talking to her. Basically said, get up, please, come this way. Told her to get off the plane. And he was like, no, you did not just do this to somebody else right in front of me after what I just experienced. He was like, in his head, like, no, don't do this to her, don't do this to her. She was allowed to come back onto the plane though. Kevin Smith moved down like a couple of seats, and he started talking to her, and he's like, are you okay? Because she looked like she was about to cry. I think she recognized him, and he was like, what happened? She was like, they wanted me to get off the plane because I was a security risk. He was like, about the armrests. And he was like, hell no, did you just do this to another person? Like, hell no. And she was like, why would they do this to me? Kevin Smith honestly felt like it was just like, not to poke fun at him, but to like prove to on their side that like that's something they normally do. But like, I don't get it. If you fit in the seat, you fit in the seat. Who cares? I know I'm not like a pilot or anything to know about like weight distribution in a plane or anything when it goes up in the air, but I don't see why it would be a bad thing. Like, I honestly don't. But like, yeah, they started talking, and he found out that they did that to her, and it was bad. So then when she came, after the whole Twitter fight, they got off the plane and everything, and kind of just swore off. He's never going to fly that airline ever again. Made it home, told his wife what happened. Basically, she knew because she was part of his team, and she kind of reads all the articles that pop up about him, and the next day there were a lot of articles. There were so many articles after what had happened. And I remember reading one of those articles. Like, I just casually clicked on it, and yeah, I think the headline was like, Kevin Smith was too fat for a plane or something like that. And like, at the time, I didn't really care. I was like, oh, okay, it's Kevin Smith, whatever. But reading it from his perspective, I was like, oh my god, like, why would you do that to somebody? Why would you do that to two people? Like, oh my God. So then obviously after that, he needed to find something else to do. Not really directing any more video or movies to be put out there to anybody. But something he really liked to do was talk with his audience, or talk to his audience, sort of similar to how I'm doing right now. So that's how he created a podcast. So he started talking, and quite a few people started tuning in and everything like that. And he obviously had a website he could put the podcasts on. And then a couple of thousand people started listening and things like that. And he ended up bringing in Jason Mewes to talk about his unfortunate drug addiction, which was totally not his fault. The way they explained it is he had an addictive personality because his mom did heroin when she was pregnant with Jason. And I was like, that's just so sad. That is honestly so sad. And so he was already predisposed to being affected by drugs. Like, he needed that in his system from a very young age. And Jason talking about that to everybody on these podcasts, like, actually helped a lot of people. Like, he didn't think it would, but it not only helped Jason talking about it and like working through it and realizing it's not like gonna change people's views of you, like, not in a bad way. Like, obviously, yeah, drug use isn't that great, but being able to say you overcame it in some way, or you're working towards overcoming it, like, that's an inspiration story for anybody. So, like, somebody who wants to try and stop using drugs, like, that would be an inspiration story for them, especially if they look up to you. Like, if they saw you in Clerks or Clerks 2, Dogma, anything, they'd be like, oh my God, like, yeah, if you can do this, maybe I can do this. Yeah, so he started creating like a whole group of people who started doing podcasts, people who never thought they would have a voice out there in the world, or that people would want to listen to them. Hell, I feel that way most of the time, especially when I'm streaming. I'm like, why do people want to be here? I know I'm not that funny. Like, why are you guys hanging out here? But to get that sort of validation that there are some people who want to hear you talk. They do want to hear what you have to say. They want to know your thoughts on certain things. That actually feels really good. Like, I can't even begin to describe how good that feels. Like, even just seeing that, like, maybe 4 or 5 of you guys saw this video and, like, there's one like. I'm like, yes, at least one person liked what I had to say. That is something that is like, you guys, just you all who are the viewers, just, it's amazing. And honestly, thank you so much. Like, I didn't mean to make this about me, but like, it goes in the same direction, so thank you guys so much. There is I don't know if you saw when I opened the book on the chapters, there is an entire chapter in here devoted specifically to his wife. An entire chapter to his wife. And basically it goes through how they met, their first couple of dates and everything, and how she stuck with him even though she had a career of her own. She was a journalist for, it was a really big newspaper. What was the newspaper? It wasn't like USA Today. That's a magazine anyways. But it was a really big newspaper. That's how they met. Kevin Smith was doing an interview in her newspaper that she interviewed him for. Like, for him, it was like love at first sight. It was like, oh my God, you look beautiful. Like, right then and there when she was standing right in the hotel doorway. And then, like, going through their dates and everything, and then them getting married, having their daughter, and the fact that she gave up her job to help him live his dream of being the filmmaker, doing all the podcasts, doing Red State across the entire country. And it was really beautiful. It was a beautiful chapter, like, for reals. And then obviously the last chapter being like a real big look back on his entire life, being a young kid working in a convenience store who then became a filmmaker at an indie show at the Sundance Film Festival, that became a filmmaker for Miramax, and then became a podcaster that, like, thousands of people listen to every time he does the podcast. That his daughter is like looks up to him. That was a beautiful moment. Like, there is a letter in this book of his daughter. I don't know what it was about. Like, I don't know the reason why she wrote it, but basically she was writing that, like, her dad's her best friend and everything. And I was like, that's such a touching moment, and how he's always supportive of her and in everything she does and things like that. I was like, oh, trying to like hurt me. You like my heart. You already stole my heart. And all from the single thought 20 plus years ago of I want to be a filmmaker. It was awesome. It was awesome. Seriously, a lot. Like, read this. Read this. If you have a chance, even if you have to borrow it from a library or something, read this. It is good. It is a good book. And like I said, it's not that long. Maybe like a little over 200 pages, I think. For my rating for this book, based on everything that I've said, it is funny. It is an emotional book. It is very informative. I would have never known any of that stuff about Wayne Gretzky. I just knew he played hockey. That was it. All of the funny, interesting pop culture references, and it being just like so inspirational. Like I said, that the daughter's note at the end, the sister telling him to be what he wanted to be instead of always just saying it, just be it. It was inspirational as hell. I would give this book right here, 8 silent bobs out of 10. It was good. It was really good. I think this is my first autobiography I've ever read. I honestly think it's the first one I've ever read. And honestly, it's a great one. It is an amazing book. If you get a chance, please read it. Please read it. So that's it for this book review. Thank you all for watching. I really, really appreciate your support. And if you are interested, I did recently go on a vacation to New Orleans, and I picked up quite a few books while we were there. My next review will be on this one, Haunted New Orleans. Basically going over hauntings and spooky, scary stories that have happened in the city of New Orleans, which I learned is also called the Crescent City. So yeah, if y'all are interested, check out the next video for that, and I will see you all next time.